Good evening, everybody. My name is Ideli White.
I'm Kimberly Madera.
Alice Drury.
Robert Valdez.
Talia Wainwright.
And we will be doing a presentation on Native Americans and alcoholism. Our overview will be the introduction, history, illnesses, prevention and treatment, and counseling. Prior to the white contact, the use of alcohol beverages in America was only confined to American Indians in the Southwest. Alcohol was scattered all over different parts of the country, and some tribes accepted it willingly so they can prolong their secular, social, religious, as well as spiritual experiences. Others, they refused it at first and later on accepted it for the taste, while the other tribes just totally rejected it altogether. There are two primary alcohol beverages, beer and alcohol, and wine. There is another alcohol beverage by the name of firewater. It was developed during the time of the initial contact, white contact, meaning the inability of Indians to tolerate the effects of alcohol. The origin of firewater started when the adulteration of alcohol with tobacco juice, hot sauce, or opium, and the other began with the custom of testing the proof of alcohol by throwing it into a fire, and if it's flammable, then it's okay to be purchased. Extremely negative and difficult situations and problems face the American Indians. It's a historic fact, and as you can see today, it's currently happening in the modernized Native American culture. 12% of the deaths among Native Americans and Alaska Natives are all alcohol related. The use of alcohol does not discriminate at all. Alcoholism varies through age, gender, tribe with women, and the older women, they totally can abstain from alcohol.
So I'll be talking about the three issues in the history of Native American and alcohol abuse. The first one is the biology versus socialization issue, and it basically states that some researchers believe that it is innate for Native Americans to abuse alcohol because it's part of their genetics, while others argue that it is part of a socialization process that has taken part in the last 400 years, with many Native American tribes being introduced to alcohol in the last 400 years by colonists, while others were introduced to alcohol in the last 200 to 100 years. So alcohol was used as a trading and bartering tool by colonists because they would use alcohol to inebriate Native Americans and cause them to trade fur and precious stones for little to nothing. So there's a lot of social harm with Native Americans and alcohol abuse because it led them to drink without knowing the full effects that alcohol would have on their behavior. There are three phases in the alcohol introduction in the Native Americans. The first one is the pre-contact culture, where Native Americans would use alcohol for ceremonial purposes, such as recalling enlightenment. They would use it for war-making times and to ward off harm from the tribe. The second phase was the initial contact when colonists began entering the tribes, and this stage really led to the casual drinking era of the Native American alcohol because they would drink without really having any of the antisocial or violent behavior associated with alcohol. And then the last phase is the development of the new Native American culture, where they drink in a group setting, regardless of the gender, they all drink until there's no alcohol left. It creates a no blame system where if you are a drunk Native American, nobody can blame you for anything because it's part of the alcohol's problem. And they also blame alcohol on all of their problems that is brought onto the tribe.
Alcohol has devastating consequences, and there are statistics involving the death of Native Americans from alcoholism. Native Americans die 4.8 times. The death rate is 4.8 times higher than that of other populations. And for liver disease from alcoholism, the death rate is 4.5 times higher than in non-natives. The effects of alcohol are devastating, and there are a lot of ramifications. There is a gene that Native Americans have that makes them react very severely to alcoholism, unlike other populations. So addiction is very common. With alcoholism, the main illnesses that Native Americans suffer from are fetal alcohol syndrome. Fetal alcohol syndrome is a disease, it's a birth defect that is caused from mothers drinking excessively while pregnant. On the Pine Ridge Reservation, 1/4 of all children are affected by fetal alcohol syndrome. Fetal alcohol syndrome is an issue for everyone because children are born with a lot of cognitive impairments. They have a hard time in school with a number of learning disabilities, memory issues, attention span, attention disorders, and hearing and communication problems. There are physical characteristics of fetal alcohol syndrome, and frequently children can be identified by having very small heads, very thin lips. So there is a physical characteristic that you can see in these children. The second major illness that comes from alcoholism is liver disease. And liver disease is the leading cause of death for Native Americans. There are more men that die from liver disease than women. And the death rate is 2.4 times higher in Native American men than other populations. It is the second leading cause of death for women between the ages of 25 and 54. For liver disease, according to the Center for Disease Control 2013 statistics, the death rate for 100,000 was 24.8. So 24.8 Native Americans died out of every 100,000. So that is much higher compared to 10.3% in other populations.
When it comes to prevention, people may think that the easiest way to stop alcoholism is by removing alcohol from the equation. Unfortunately, when it comes to disease like alcoholism, most people will find a way to get alcohol, whether it's buying it from somebody or buying it in a location where alcohol is sold. Soon after the problems related to alcohol began appearing, tribes as early as 1800s tried a form of prohibition. The Handsome Lake movement was named for a Seneca religious leader who incorporated a vigorous anti-alcohol stance and incorporated it into traditional beliefs and ceremonies. Unfortunately, it was not very successful, but it was the most notable early attempt at stopping or preventing alcoholism. Technically, prohibition is defined as forbidden by law. Congress originally passed a bill in 1832 making it illegal to sell alcohol to Native Americans. Unfortunately, there was not a lot of success with that law, and it was eventually repealed by Congress in 1953. At that point, tribes had the option whether they would have their reservation be a wet reservation where they would sell alcohol, or if it would be a dry reservation where it would not be allowed to be sold. 2/3 of tribes are currently on dry reservations. Again, studies show that that's not really being successful in deterring alcoholism, and there have been studies showing when Native Americans have to leave their reservation to get alcohol, it may lead to fatalities or DUIs. So there's not a lot of research right now showing the effects of alcohol on the Native American community, whether they're living on reservations or they're urban Indians. That's something that there needs to be more studies to find out why is it impacting Native Americans as greatly as it is, and how can they overcome that? What they've suggested or may have suggested is the answer is a combination of legislation as well as involving the Native American community to reestablish traditional Indian beliefs and values, along with education and social support. The hope is that one day the Native American community can have the upper hand against alcoholism.
According to the Bruce and Manning textbook, American Indians may be more successful in stopping or controlling their alcohol use if the treatment approach includes family, group, or community components. This is understanding since the American Indian culture is very much community and family oriented. Since the American Indian culture has its own culture, it is very important that the counselor becomes aware of and understands the many-sided experiences of Native people in contemporary society. These experiences would include the impact of culture and identity from an individual, community, and spiritual perspective throughout time and generations. Because of these experiences, it may be difficult for an American Indian to seek counsel. From past experiences, American Indians have received negative consequences for receiving counseling. These negative consequences include having their children taken away from them, being trusted or being talked to in a condescending manner, and being prescribed medication without identifying the problem. Keeping these consequences in mind when counseling is important to maintain trust throughout the sessions. There are factors that perceive trustworthiness. These factors include authenticity, respectfulness, and signs of listening behavior, along with self-disclosure and a slow pace. Keeping the trust with the client is very important to a successful counseling session. Also from the textbook, there are 6 practical recommendations for counseling American Indians with substance abuse problems. These recommendations, first is the greeting. A gentle handshake, if any handshake, is important to remember because a firm handshake is considered an aggressive show of power and can be construed as an insult. Second is hospitality. Offering a beverage or snack would demonstrate hospitality, and the American Indians have a traditional emphasis on generosity and kindness. Third is silence. Maintaining a time of quietness at the beginning of the session will give both the counselor and the client a chance to orient themselves to the situation, get in touch with themselves, and experience the presence of the other person. Fourth is acculturation. To get a sense of the client's acculturation by formally assessing his or her values, geographic origin, residence, and tribal affiliation. Fifth is eye contact. The counselor needs to remember to respect American Indians' practice by avoiding eye contact. The eyes are considered a pathway to the spirit, and even though it may be acceptable to glance occasionally at the client, it should be remembered that listening is with the ears and the heart, not with the eyes. Lastly is direction. It is important to allow the client to make their own choices. Offering suggestions is okay, but do not offer directions, and that to respect their personal choice.